Hey guys, so this is our second online class that we'll be doing. I will let you guys actually see this video. Let me know if you guys have any questions, concerns, or if I should probably change this method of teaching. Maybe we could possibly do some sort of hangouts or meeting, online meeting, or something of that. So let me know what you guys think. So this is what we'll be doing today. We'll be doing casting, which I will explain soon. So these are our videos. So what is casting in Python? How does casting work? Applying casting and examples. So what is casting in Python? There may be times when you want to specify a type onto a variable. This can be done with casting. Python is an object-oriented language and as such it uses classes to define data types, including its primitive types. Right, so casting in Python is therefore done using constructor functions, which are basically functions. Right. Next, so in case you don't know what object-oriented programming is, here is a quick definition. Okay, so casting is when you convert a variable value from one type to another. In Python, this is done with functions such as int or float or string. You know the input function lets the user, or lets you, typo. Oh, sorry. So the input function allows the user to input an input, basically our number, letter. That input can be anything. That input can be number, letter, etc, etc. Right. So that input can be any of those things. That input can be any. Oh, I literally just had it here. Let me just take this out. An input. That input can be a number, letter, character, etc. Right? So whatever the user enters, it is entered as a string. As we just said this, as we already know, anything that you enter into the input function is entered as a string. Right? So let's copy and paste. So we're going to use this. I'm going to explain this in Jupyter, or in Jupyter Notebooks, or Azure Notebooks, as I think most of you might know it as. So let's go over to Azure and look at it. Alright, so actually I was already over here. Control A, Control V. Okay. So now this is what we have. Alright. So we have x is equal to input, and then we want the user to enter a number. Right, then we're going to print, and we're going to say int x multiply by 1. So as we know, we can actually multiply strings. If you multiply a string, it's simply going to multiply how much time it needs to. So if you come over here and we do this, let me see, did I copy the correct thing? I'm just making sure. So Control V, there we go. Let's run this. Of course we're going to get an error because we have all of these things here. So now let us edit it. Let me know if you see the errors. I think all of the errors are pretty simple. Alright, so the quotation is one. So if you look at it, invalid character in identifier. So this is not correct. Here, just take this out. This is not correct. It needs to be common. And so is this. Alright, I think that should be about all of the errors. Let's enter a number. I'll enter 1. So if you look at this output, this is not exactly the best test case, but I will change it. So we have 1 being displayed as well as 1. So this is a casted number. This has been casted from a string, because it was entered as a string within the input statement here, and it was casted to an int. So now we have 1 multiplied by 1, and then this is the string. And then we have 1 multiplied by 1. So now let's change this. We're going to change this to 2 and change this to 2 as well. And let us run it. Let's enter a number. I'm going to enter 1. 1 by 2 is 1, but 1 by 2 is not 1 1. So if you look at it, it is multiplying. It is basically just multiplying the string. But this this was actually changed into a number and then it was multiplied. So 1 by 2 is 1, or 2 by 1 is 2, whichever way, and then 1 by 1, well, if you're multiplying a string, it's just going to simply be multiplied. Now we'll leave this as is, and then we're going to change this to an addition sign, right? And we will run it. So let's keep it as it is, right? And here we have an error. So if you look at this, it says type error must be string, not int. So it's trying to add a string plus an int. And as we know, this won't work. This will not work in Python. You can add a string and a string, but you can't add a string and a number. If this was to be, let's say, 1, right? Let's run this. I'll say no, actually it's simply because the two of them are strings, it's basically just added them up. I just entered 2, so x is now equal to 2. So 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 plus 1 is 2 and 1, because we add in 2 strings. So you cannot add strings. You can't add data types. Well, you can't add strings and integers. Those two things won't work, right? So what if we change this to a float, right? What happens if we change this to a float? Do you think it's gonna run? Nope. Also needs to be a float. So if you have a float number, then so let's say we don't wanna go delete anything. We can simply just change this into a float as well. And alright. And voila. Here we go. Alright, now let's move on to the other examples that we have. So basically just explain. So what I like for you to do is copy these codes, paste them into Jupyter notebooks, and run them and just play around with them. I'm sorry. Just run the codes and play around with them and see what you understand. Alright, so enter student age. Let's say student is 15. Alright, next year the student is going to be 16. What happened here? This was changed. So whatever you enter up here, when it gets to here, you see it says int and then student age. So it's basically calling student age. So it calls this, which allows you to add the value of whatever is entered in here. So it stores within student age, and then you change student age to an integer. So you can add it up to this, right? And that's that. Let's move on to the next example. So again, this is the casting right here. So whenever you want to cast something, whenever you want to cast something, you simply just indicate what it is going to be. So let's say I want to cast x into a float. So I am going to say print, and then float, open bracket, x. And now when I print this, we see that our x has become a float point number or a float. We can change x into an integer as well, as we already did. So you can simply just say int and then x. X is an int, and then say the same thing. So let's say we want to specify string. You can just say str, open and close bracket, and put x within that bracket. And here you go. So this is a string. This is a string. So string, integer, float, float, and an int. So let's move on to the next example. This is your next example. Copy again. So Control C, come over to here, Control V. So student age is equal to int and then input. So if you look at this, this is casting it at the very beginning, at the initialization stage. Student age is being casted as an integer. So you're not limited to casting at the very end or casting when a variable is being called or used. You can also cast it at the initialization phase. So if you look at this, it says student age is equal to int, and then we have an open bracket here, and then we have a close bracket here, input, open bracket, close bracket. You also need to remember that whenever you open something, you have to close it, or whenever you start something, you have to close it. So when you start something, let's start something, you have to end it, right? So and a bracket was open here and it was closed here, bracket was open here and it was closed here. Okay, so now if we look at this, student age is equal to int, so it's being casted into an integer, then input. So as soon as the user enters something, it's going to be casted, it's going to be entered as an integer instead of a string. So when you come down here, age in decade is equal to student age plus 10. So you don't have to, when you cast it at the very beginning, it's already casted as an integer. So you don't have to cast it again to turn it into an integer. It's already an integer, so you simply just have to add it to whatever number you want it to. So in this case, we're adding it to 10. So now let us run this, and we say if the student is 15, in the next 10 years they will be 25. And that basically leads us to the end of this lesson. What you have next is the program. So this is an adding calculator. Gets to input numbers, right? So get input of two integer numbers, cast the input and print the following by the result. So the output example. So here is an output of what it should look like, and this is optional. So check if input is all digit. Therefore, try integer addition to avoid errors in casting invalid inputs. So by using this, is going to actually help you to check to make sure that your numbers are actually numbers and not string, right? Okay, so that brings us to the end of the lesson. That is it for today. I am going to re-upload this because there were a couple mistakes in here. So I am going to upload this to Moodle. Please feel free to email, message me on Moodle, any sort of communication that you have access to. Please let me know whatever questions that you may have. I am here to answer. Alright, thank you and goodbye.